Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to be working on AVID interactive notebooks using Envision Math. So we're going to be sharing some of the different resources through Envision Math, but specifically different strategies on how to take notes with the fourth grade. So we're going to look at Unit 1.1 and 1.2 as we go through this. I am using the Dell projector, the pen, and the different software that we have with the HoverCam and Workspace to be able to do this. On the board right now, this is an example of what the notebook is going to look like. It's just simply an example of it. We will work through some of the different aspects of it, but one of the things to remember is it is a very flexible document. So it might look different for everyone, but it's very important that you go through and start creating it first. Don't just, act like me and make it up as you go along. I know last year I would sub in a few classes, and that's what I would do, is just walk in and start with the interactive note-taking depending on whatever the subject was. It's difficult to do that way. You want to think ahead. The resources that we're using today as well can be found on our AVID resource page, which I'm not able to bring up because I'm connected on this. With our AVID team page, we do have lots of different resources. Under the books section, there is interactive notebooks. So when we start talking about one-pagers, that's where we find that resource. So, again, this is just simply a way in which I would do this in the classroom. But again, you do have complete flexibility. And so, every time with AVID, we want to start with the essential questions. With this AVID notebook, it is just a single subject notebook. First page is your introduction page. So it's just going to be simply the information that you have. I know one of the resources that we've placed in the AVID folder is a one-page document describing the expectations of it. And again, if I could connect to the internet right now, I would show you all exactly what that looks like. But as soon as I connect to the internet, I am going to lose the projector. I haven't figured out how to fix that problem when you're fully wireless. Next few pages. You don't have that page, do you? What? The cover page. No. Okay. The next few pages you do want to leave open for a table of contents, because ultimately this needs to be a living document where the kids are able to go back and look up information as they go. And if you notice on the first page, I've got some important information already written on page 6, because you number all the pages. We'll find a place value chart. On page 10, it's place value, steps, and comparing numbers. If you notice, I skipped a lot of pages because you want it to be as important as possible. And so in the table of contents, I'm not going to necessarily list everything, but the most important things for them to be able to find. Some kids in their interactive notebooks, you'll see them start putting in sticky notes or placeholders of some kind so they can just quickly be able to find it, just like you all do with your lesson plans, which I see some of you have them already marked. So again, you want to skip a few pages. I chose to skip a total of 5 pages. And if we look down at the bottom, we have all the pages numbered. Again, it's organization, because in AVID we want to make sure everything is as organized as possible. This can be done whole group, it can be done in teacher station, but to me it would be easier whole group. Nice thing about our software for our kids with an IEP that says give them a copy of the notes. We still expect them to take these notes, but then you can print out everything afterwards directly from your computer, or you go choose one kid in your classroom who does a good job and you can run a copy of it. but you want your kids on the IEP taking these exact same notes the best that they can. This page 5, right before we start, it's not a table of contents page. It's actually a page that I'm able to use a one-pager on. So I've left it blank intentionally. At the end of the lesson, you could have them do a one-pager afterwards. Again, that's something we're going to share a little bit later in what we're doing. Are there any questions before we really get going in? Okay. So in looking at the Envision math, I just simply took the teacher's edition and started walking through all the parts of it. Again, this is topic 1.1. And so at the very top, we have topic 1.1, generalized place value understanding. And again, we try and get it to where we can actually see things. Is that large enough? You all can talk. I know we're recording this, but you can talk. Is that large enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No.
So, the topic is topic 1.1, generalized place value and understanding. If at your campus you require some other information, top right-hand corner, that's fine. A lot of times we might put student name, the date, that type of information, but for a demonstration wasn't necessary. The essential questions, which I took directly out of the curriculum. How are greater numbers written? How can whole numbers be compared? And how are place values related? So these are the essential questions that will be there. Again, it's found directly in the curriculum. I took it from that. Now, as I model this with the students, there are a number of different ways I could do this. Ultimately, using the workspace program. This is a great resource and a great tool. Got to make sure it's on first. Here's hoping it's all aligned. I want to be able to model it on the board. Again, as I save the information in Workspace, it's something that I'll have from then on. One of the nice things about Workspace, if you're teaching multiple classes, after you do this in one class, there is a curtain feature that you can open up on it, and you can just drag it open as you go along, so you don't have to redo the notes for every class you teach, which comes in extremely handy. Again, you want to be able to help the kids to be able to understand what every aspect of it looks like. And I don't have the pen option on right now. So I want to make sure that they understand all the parts of the page. So I start off with my funky lines. And I want them to know exactly where every part of it goes. And so it's topic 1. And this is working very slowly, so I'm not going to write a lot of this on the board. But again, I just want to demonstrate how you're able to do it. Topic 1.1, my title, and then we always have to make sure the essential questions are in here. As you will notice in some of the interactive notes, I also use essential understanding because there isn't necessarily a question that goes along with it, but there is a key understanding that we want as well. So in some of the notes you'll see EU for essential understandings. So here we would write the questions on the board, and we would expect all the students to copy it. This is something that is very easy for you to do ahead of time, or like right now we're having some issues with it being able to go as fast as I want. There is also the option to be able to type. And so I've typed the notes up there so it's easier to be able to read and write. And so again, this is an option as with the software. So as I would look through topic 1.1, in my sticky notes, because we're teachers and we live with sticky notes, I've given myself a little chart of where I'm going to go with everything. And so we have the introduction, vocabulary, because vocabulary is very critical. Okay, listening to a lot of the 4th grade teachers right now, what we're going over today is place value. The kids think that they've never heard of place value right now, so we're having to spend a little bit more time than we would like reviewing this, even when we know it was taught in 2nd and 3rd grade. They're looking like they're lost. And so we have introduction, vocabulary, place value chart, and then reviewing the information and station time. And so the first thing that I would do in this lesson is the vocabulary. And so our important words are expended form, number line, number name, place value, rounding, and whole number. You can use any of your AVID or Literacy First strategies to be able to have them write down the information. Could just be as simple as writing the definition. You could do 4-star vocabulary, 4-corner vocabulary, or any other strategies you really want to do to teach the vocabulary words. With them being able to write the definition, being able to give an example of it, being able to draw a picture that might be able to help them out. Any of these will work, but again, you're going to need to spend time with the vocabulary, especially in this first lesson, so that they're able to do the rest of the unit. And so it's a key thing to spend some time on. After that is place value chart. And I'm not able to get it to move very well to where I can find it. With the place value chart, because that's immediately where the lesson goes into. There are a couple different ways to do it. If you notice, I've chosen to draw this on the side, and with this, each of the columns is a different place value. In the curriculum, it's also color-coded. I know this is very hard to see right now, but I've color-coded the ones place green, the thousands blue, and the millions red. And the reason why I've done that is, as I go through this unit, I am going to continue to focus on those place values. Okay? I'm going to continue pushing those colors, because the more ways that they're able to see it, the more that the kids are really going to understand it. So, again, I've got the ones, I've got the thousands, I've got the millions. I have a decimal and then a blank spot to the right of it, because it's imperative that as 4th graders they're able to understand that there's a decimal to the right of the ones place. It's going to help them in upper grades tremendously, because as they move on to 5th, 6th grade, and they have to deal with rounding, they have to deal with borrowing from the whole numbers. If they don't understand that decimal's there, they struggle greatly. So while it's not something we're focusing on now, it is a part of this, and you're more than welcome to be able to share a little bit about it. Again, I've color-coded everything. One of the fancy things I learned many years ago is Scotch tape on paper. After they draw their chart, they've got a lot of room to work. I would give them a piece of Scotch tape that goes across that. The reason why, it acts like a whiteboard at that point in time. They can write on it with their pencil, they erase it, and it comes off without leaving a mark and messing up their paper. So now you've got an area that they're able to do all their work from here on out without having to tear up paper after paper after paper. And that works for anything. You've got textbooks that you want the kids to write in certain areas. Put a piece piece of Scotch tape in there, and then they can take some notes there. And then you're able to reuse it over and over. Because again, it erases perfectly and doesn't leave a line. And that works with any pencils. And so you could just put a single piece of tape across, or a few pieces, or all the way down. Okay? You only need to do this one area of the page, because that's the part that they're going to be working with then. Okay? So as I've done my Envision math, I've spent a lot of time now going over the definitions. I've went over the place value chart. You can always bring in some different videos to be able to help them be able to understand this, but this is key that they start understanding the place values. And as we turn the page in the Teacher's Edition, we then see it start to focus on the practice. And so this is the problem-based learning, which is page 5 of the 4th grade Teacher's Edition. And I've come through and I've made 4 total columns. Okay, the very left-hand column, if you've noticed as we've been going through, that's where I'm putting my titles of what I'm working on. And then over here on the larger right side of the page, I've got lots of flexibility to do what I want to do. This I'm choosing to do on the sheet of paper, but in your classrooms, you could always have some cutouts or some types of graphic organizers that you can do and paste in here. Again, it could be flip charts, it could be a lot of different resources to make it usable. Earlier today, I was meeting with a 1st grade teacher, and that's what we were discussing, was how to use the different manipulatives that they create in the classroom and how to put it in an interactive notebook so the 1st graders can be able to use this. And as an experienced teacher, so she started asking me questions. Can we glue this in there? Can we glue this? Can I put glitter in it? Because 1st grade likes glitter. All these different things, but ultimately it's flexible. You know your kids what's going to work for them. So I've created 3 columns. Again, you can use some different colored paper if you want to, and have them glue it in, preferably with the stick glue, because we all know what they do with the regular glue. So stick glue only. Yes, line. So we have word form, expanded form, and standard form. These are the 3 types of numbers that we have, and we want to make sure that they're understanding them together. And so as we go through this, I just simply made up a number, put it up on the board, which was 25,123, and then we walked through the process of writing everything. So again, the number was 25,123, and then I would take them back to my place value chart, and we would practice writing it out, 25,123. And when the kids say 25,123, that's wrong. We all know that. We have to correct them every time, because and only goes to the decimal. And it doesn't matter what grade they are, we have to be correcting that. Because once we get to 5th and 6th grade, it becomes habit, and it's the wrong number every single time. Any 5th, 6th grade teachers give me an amen on that one?
That happened today like 6 times.
Yes. No matter how many times you went over it, right? And you demonstrated on the board. Okay, here's what you just said. That's not what I said. Yeah, it is. So we demonstrated and we practiced working it out. Again, as I said, we're color coding, so you can't see it. It's not pulling up here very easily. But in my notebook, I actually have all these color coded as I go along. So 123 is green. 25 is blue, because that's the color of the place value. Green, blue. Green, and all that blue. Again, practice, practice, practice. They have to be able to see it in all the different forms, because ultimately this is something that they're going to have to know. They're tested on it every way that they could be tested, so they have to get it down. The problem-based learning, which again was on page 5, we have the 2 problems that were there. And so we work through the problem-based learning activity, and we have them show their work here. We might help them with the first one, and then they work on the second one either as a small group or by themselves. Again, color coding and doing every part of it. Now I know I write a little small and messy, so it might take more pages for some people. That's fine. The key is just working through the system and being as organized as you could be. After the problem-based learning, the lesson is visual learning. And so it does have a couple questions on page 6. I have these as quick right answers. I do not have the teacher's edition in front of me. Is this 4th grade?
No, it's 5th grade.
Okay.
Gina's 5th too. Oh.
Okay.
So and I have 6 though.
Thank you. The bad thing about being a principal is they don't give me copies of them, so I have to borrow them.
There's plenty of copies of 5th and 6th grade down there.
So again, as we get to the visual learning, there are a few questions that go along with it. So again, we have the different questions from Teacher's Edition. So we have the convince me, reason abstractly. How is it the thousands period? How is the thousands period similar to the other periods in the place value chart? So you would have them quick write those answers. In the Teacher's Edition, the next part is teacher table and their stations and homework assigned. And so we've worked through the entire first lesson as an interactive notebook. Again, you go to teacher tables. Are they done with their taking interactive notes? Yes. Are they done with their notebook? No, they're probably going to need it once they get there. Okay, and so this is the entire cycle for 1-1. Yeah. 1-2. Much of the same. Place value relationships. The EQ, this is EU. I will recognize the relationship between adjacent digits and a multi-digit number. And so if you notice, it starts off a little different. Because again, I've already done the vocabulary, don't need to do it again. So it starts off immediately with a quick write. And so use the quick write on the bottom of page 11A. And again, we're just walking through this. And here in a minute, we'll stop the video and really break into this for everyone that's here. And so we have lesson 11.1.2. And so we've got bottom of 11. We have the different sentence frames that we would use on here. It gives us a number of different questions to be able to ask as we go along it. I can statements, use reasoning, and so we work through the activity that goes along with this, and we have them do a quick write in the first section. At the bottom of the page, again, it does give us some different examples of the work that they might have done, but the wonderful thing about these problem-based learnings like this is there is not one right, correct way. There can be 15 different ways they could work it as long as they come out to the correct problem, and that's where the quick write comes in important. We have our problem-based learning, and so again, we have our work area for the PBL. Our next section, because again, we're just walking directly through the lesson, is the visual learning, and it's the Convince Me on page 12. And so at the bottom of page 12 says, is the value of the first four 10 times as great as the value of the second? And then it gives you some numbers. So again, they have to convince you of what their answer is. They have to justify it. So again, you have a working area to it. And then teacher table, homework. So if you notice, there was a whole lot more note-taking on 1-1 than there was 1-2. And guess what? That's fine. Because really, 1-2 was practicing everything you've done 1-1. Doesn't matter what subject you're teaching, it goes the same way. If you're teaching science, some lessons you'll have a lot of note-taking. Others, it'll just be practicing or putting something together. So this second lesson, it was more about practicing and having an area to show their work. Again, when we look at table of contents, page 6 was a place value chart, and then we skipped 4 pages before the next very important thing. So again, the interactive notebook, it's a place to keep all their work as they go along, but it's also the place to really keep the important work. Lesson 2, not so critical that they're taking notes as they go along. Again, it's a place to work. Topic 1-3. Comparing whole numbers. Again, I can look at the title and know this is going to be an important lesson. So again, we're able to see a lot more work as we go along with this. We have our essential understanding. I've color-coded a few words in here. Again, we color code, we put boxes, we put circles around important things, because that's what we really want the kids to really know and understand. And so I color-coded compare and comparison the same color because they need to understand those mean exactly the same thing. If we don't do it, if we don't really pay that much attention, a lot of times our kids aren't paying attention and they won't understand exactly what it's saying. Place value, I have a different color. As we go through the lesson, I color code as I go along as well, hitting the importance of the words. We have our PBL. So it's got the questions. How deep can the submarine dive? How deep are the oceans? Atlantic, Pacific, Indian. What are you asked to find? And so with this PBL project, which is page 17, it's becoming a lot more rigorous for the kids, but also a lot more fun. The question it actually asks here is, a robotic submarine can dive to a depth of 26,000 feet. Which oceans can the submarine explore all the way to the bottom? Solve the problem. I created some questions up front to help guide them through this, because they're not going to know all the questions to begin with. But as we know, if we've already been able to practice with the 3-act math a little bit, or it's coming 3-act math, they start to learn to ask those questions. Very important to do the 3-act math. And very fun to do them as well. The kids enjoy it. We enjoy watching them do it and participating with it. But again, we have the questions. We have the answers in our teacher's edition. In fact, how deep can a robotic submarine dive? Directly where I got my questioning to guide the kids. I continue with my lesson. We have the modeling for understanding. So in a small group, students will create a visual understanding of problem and answer. Students will post a visual poster. So expert learning walk. I didn't put this in here for the kids. Put that in there for me so I knew exactly where to teach. So again, I'm creating this as I go along. Not every part of it's going to be for the kids. I needed that, so I made sure that I knew exactly which AVID strategy I was going to utilize at that time. Visual learning. So step 1, write numbers lining up place value. Step 2, look at the next digit to the right, compare. And step 3, the first place where digits are different is where you compare the numbers. And so these are the steps to comparing. And then we've got a place to practice. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Topic 1.4, rounding whole numbers. And if we look down at the bottom of it, we have the steps in rounding. It's actually 7 steps in rounding. So we've organized it as much as we can. We've written it the best that we can. Step 1, write the number. Step 2, underline the desired place value. Step 3, circle digit to the right, using the same number every time. And I'm adding to the steps, so it's all displayed. The error I did with this was I ran out of room on my page. Again, it's 7 steps. I would probably want to make sure when I did it with the kids, I made sure they all did it on the exact same page. So we don't skip a page and step 7 will be there. Because as we know, if it's not all on the same page, the kids will not do the last step. Well, it wasn't there. So obviously I didn't know that until I did it here. And so again, the notebook can be whatever's best for the kids. It could be flexible. It could be taking graphic organizers outside and bringing them in. It could be gluing lots of pieces to it, color coding. Again, it's a living document that they need to keep at all times with them. So it needs to stay in their notebooks. All of the resources for this are on our AVID team drive, and your instructional coaches can give you access to it and show you a little bit more. With any questions, feel free to contact me or your instructional coaches, and we can really help you with it. Thank you for attending today. I hope this turned out where we can use it.